Cannes Film Festival started, Cannes was mostly a small fishing village that actually brought Cannes to the fore. And it's the same with other film festivals throughout the world. So there's no reason that Montrose cannot have an ambition to do something like this. An extended hours application can be put in for up to a month. So therefore you would have the same type of control if you have 3 months notice of a film festival. In fact, probably more control than you would on an extended hours application, because you have the full details before you, not only of what is generally proposed, but you would have the full details before you 3 months in advance of what is going to be actually occurring on any particular occasion. I do take Councillor Durno's point of view on hours. But this is not somewhere that is likely to attract an old lag who is going to sit in a cinema drinking softly from 10 in the morning until 3 in the morning. The premises are going to be properly monitored. They are a cinema. They're not even set out in the same way as a normal cinema would be. The seats are comfy, they are much larger, and there are plenty of staff who are going to be checking what is likely to happen within the confines of the building. The cost of alcohol in the building is going to be such that the type of people who do have alcohol problems are unlikely to be attracted to go to it. There are plenty of other places which are open, including supermarkets where people can access alcohol and drink. I do not honestly believe that the fears of attracting that type of person to these premises are likely to occur. The late night element, these are premises which offer not just entertainment, but they will be offering significant and quite important entertainment in terms of the arts world. This is not somewhere where you're going to go for a quick wee dance in the disco. This isn't somewhere where you're just going to be going to listen to a DJ. This is somewhere where you're going to be going to appreciate the arts, to enjoy film, to have potential for a premiere on a once a month basis, and potentially a film festival which will start to draw people into the town. And I hope your honours might be with me in understanding that the late hours are actually beneficial in this case to the citizens of Montrose and to the county itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, in which case can we move to the application? Section 1, description of premises. Members are happy. Section 2, core times. On sales Sunday to Thursday 11 AM to midnight, Friday and Saturday 11 AM to 1 AM. Off sales Monday to Sunday 10 in the morning till 10 in the evening. Are members happy with that?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Right, seasonal variations. We have Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, Hogmanay, and New Year's Day, which are the standard seasonal variations. Are members happy with that?
Agreed.
Yes.
Right.
Can I note my dissent on that? I'm not happy about the 3 o'clock in the morning thing. So if you just want to put my note of dissent on that part. Okay.
But can I just clarify with Mrs. Anderson the seasonal variation of Christmas and New Year?
Yes, these are just standard hours, Councillor Durno. I think the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and that these are the standard seasonal variations that are in the board policy. These ones here. So it would just be. I think it may be the next part that you're unhappy about. Okay, then. Thanks for that, Fiona.
Right. If I can take each paragraph. On no more than 12 occasions per annum, the premises operators shall be permitted to open for the showing of film premieres commencing at midnight and the sale of drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and food and snacks until 3 AM. Last orders for food and drink to be at 2:30 AM. Councillor Fairweather.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, and I mean, we do have a board policy, and as Councillor King often tells us, right, it is there for a reason. Right, this is a new venture, but I'd be quite happy if the other board members were to agree that they don't start at midnight, they start at 11 and they get till 2 o'clock. which we have given to others. I'll wait and see what they say.
Thank you. Councillor Whiteside.
Hi, yeah, I would just like to comment that the whole project is amazing. I really love the vision and ambition they've got. I've got slight concerns about the 3M finish as well, but I do understand that this is a unique vision. It's a unique place, and I'm really happy to see it going forward. Perhaps Councillor Fairweather's suggestion is a happy compromise here. And also, we do have the power to come back to the board if there's any problems. The other thing I wanted to clarify, would the facilities to have a drink at that time only apply to people that have paid to enter for the film premiere? That would probably solve a lot of the problems, I would imagine.
Yes, they would not be open to the public to come in for a drink in any manner whatsoever. It's only people who have bought tickets.
That's great. Thanks for clarifying, Mrs. Hood.
So would you accept, in addition to that, Mrs. Hood, that there should be no entry after midnight on those events?
I don't see why that would cause any particular problem to anybody. But if they were shutting at 2, would it make an enormous amount of difference when the last entry was if they were coming in for a film?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about people coming in wanting a drink, but yeah, that's fine.
No, it's Your Honour's. It is absolutely Your Honour's decision. I just don't see what actual benefit having a condition like that on the licence would be. If you said that the event has to start at 11, if it was a premiere, they might be coming in for a snack or a glass of champagne or something like this, then the film would start undoubtedly, probably to allow it to finish at 2 o'clock, and then people would be leaving thereafter. So the film would have to be put to a time when it could be enjoyed and people could get out.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So if our members wishing to accept Councillor Fairweather's compromise that it finishes at 2, not 3.
As long as the bar was closed by 2, I would be okay with that. I just want to take in consideration that the licence holders in Montrose have had licences not any later than that, and I don't think it would be very fair. So that's my take on it. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So on notions per annum, the premises operators shall be permitted to open for the showing of film premieres commencing at 11 p.m. and the sale of drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and food snacks until 2 a.m. Last orders for food and drink to be at 1:30 a.m. Bring all those hours forward an hour.
That would be perfect.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I think Mrs. Hood alluded to this in her presentation. Would the board members be agreeable to requiring the licence holder to give the clerk 7 days notice of the exercise of this extension for premieres, so that we can monitor usage, and that they could also let the police know, so that we know the events taking place?
Right. So
yeah,
advice to the police and licensing authority.
Without any difficulty whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholl.
I think this idea of 12 o'clock start would be because the premiere would be starting from that date, and that would be the earliest they could show the film, would be 12, just a minute past 12 on that date, if you understand what I mean. And starting at 11 o'clock would mean the premiere would be a day later starting. That's what I think the object of this 12 o'clock is for. Thank you.
The greater majority of films nowadays are only around about 100 to 110 minutes. So even if they started at 1 minute past midnight, they would be able to finish by 2, I would have thought.
Can I come in again, Your Honours? You're obviously dealing with regards to the sale of alcohol, and I don't think my clients would have any difficulty with the sale of alcohol ceasing at 2 o'clock, as Councillor Durno said. but there surely would, if the film was a 3-hour film, I'm fairly sure that Your Honours, you would be advised of this and would hardly object to persons being able to sit in till the end of a film.
Yeah.
Provided the alcohol stops at 2.
Yeah.
Okay, are members satisfied with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Right. The operators will create and hold an annual film festival, which will take place over the course of 1 to 2 weeks. This festival is to be held at the discretion of the operators, who undertake to advise the authorities 3 months in advance of the start date. Are members happy with that?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Right. The film festival will feature several premiere film showings, some of which will commence at midnight until 3 a.m, which will say will be at 2 a.m, and would be in addition to the 12 other premieres proposed to be shown throughout the year. The festival will include all-day showings of film and/or director/film star Q&As and other special events, including educational events relating to performances, live music, talks, etc. The premises operators have an option to remain open until 3 a.m. to facilitate these events. Food, soft and alcoholic drinks and beverages would be on offer with last orders. It states here 2:30. Would members be satisfied to bring that to 1:30?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
I wonder if I could ask if the last orders could be at 2 o'clock, so it fits in with what you have agreed with the film premieres.
No.
Because
No, what we're talking about, Mrs. Hood, is alcohol being supplied to be finished by 2 a.m. Most of the other premises that we have granted till 2 a.m. So we would bring this in line with them.
that would be perfectly acceptable, but there's always a 15-minute drinking up time at the end of core hours, whether it's 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That's part of the general legislation. I'm sure that Mr. Thompson would confirm that.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes, that is correct, convener. That if the sale of the last sale of alcohol is if the board members agree at 1:30 and that all alcohol is to be consumed by 2, then there would be another 15-minute drinking up period.
Okay, if that's the legislation, we shall comply. Gaming events, the international.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Please forgive me. I'm not sure what's happened. I thought at the premieres that Your Honours had agreed that the last orders would be at 2.
There you go.
Finish for 2.
Finish for 2.
That's right, and then the 15-minute drinking up time, and that would be acceptable.
Yes, we've said last orders for food and drink to be at 1:30 for a 2 o'clock finish. So if there is then a 15-minute drinking up time by legislation, that is what the legislation says. So there will be the 15-minute drinking up time.
So the drinking up time would go until 2:15.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right. Gaming events. International gaming events require competitors to be able to take part over a continuous 24 to 72-hour period. I'm not sure I could stay awake that long. These are events where computer gamers play competitions around the clock. The premises would remain open for the period of the event. However, alcohol will only be served to observers during the normal core hours, and otherwise the premises would remain open and be able to serve food, meals and snacks and non-alcoholic drinks and beverages to participants and observers. Are members satisfied with that?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All the above events will be suitably stewarded, and the organisers will communicate at an appropriate time with local authorities and police to enhance compliance and the proper running of the events. It is anticipated that the majority of tickets sold for these events would be in advance. However, there may be capacity for ticket sales at the door. Patrons will be encouraged to book in advance. Are members satisfied with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Is there any need to require SIA stewarding at night? Or are members satisfied that it can be stewarded by the organisation?
Yeah, by the organisation, that should be right. That should be. If there's any problems, Chair, we can go back and ask for proper door stewards.
Right.
And
I
door
agree with that.
stewards would be required if alcohol is being sold. It's highly likely that door stewards will be required and will be put in place after 1 o'clock if the premises are like too busy, say in the film festival, etc., because they want to ensure appropriate compliance. And if required, my clients have said that they will have their own staff trained to enable them to be door stewards and then have extra bar staff, etc., on duty.
Thank you. Right, section 4, activities. The following activities are to take place within and out with core hours. Conference facilities, restaurant facilities, bar meals, receptions, club or other group meetings, recorded music, live performances, dance facilities, theatre, films, gaming, indoor/outdoor sports, televised sport and outdoor drinking facilities. The following activities may take place out with core hours. Premises may open from 9 AM for the showing of matinees. Service of teas, coffees, breakfast and snacks from 7 AM. Activity room can be used from 7 AM for example, yoga, keep fit, meetings, etc. And premises may operate after core hours for the activities detailed in the seasonal variations. Are members satisfied with that?
Agreed.
Right. 5, other activities. Main business of the facility is as a cinema. However, the operators also wish to encourage community use. Yoga, keep fit, dance, conferences, meetings, live music, theatre, and other community activities will be able to take place in the activities room. Occasional race or casino nights may take place in the premises in conjunction with other events. Late night film and film festival premises will be properly stewarded and most tickets will be sold in advance. Special parent and baby films may be shown once per week during matinee period. Film festival, performance education and activities to encourage the arts, theatre, music and film for all comers and sections of the community. External areas may be used for service of food and drinks from 0700 to 2200. Now, our policy says external areas should close at 2100.
My clients have agreed to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Small shops selling sweets, crisps, popcorn and off sales, which will comprise special, possibly branded alcohols. Alcohol will be displayed in a lock-fast glass-fronted cupboard. Patrons will be permitted to purchase alcohol for off-sales removal from premises prior to 2200. Patrons will not be permitted to take off-sale alcohol into cinema screening areas, and any off-sales purchased in advance of patrons entering the premises for film or other activities will be kept in the shop or other parts of the premises and handed to the purchaser as they leave the premises. Are members agreeable?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, children and young persons. Children from birth to 11 years will be required to be accompanied by an adult to view age-appropriate films until 2200 or the end of the film or the end of a meal or private function to which they are invited. Satisfied?
Agreed.
Right. Unaccompanied children 12 to 15 years and young persons 16 to 17 years will be permitted to access the premises to view age-appropriate films or take part in arranged activities of 2200 or the end of the film.
Agreed.
Now I think that is against our board policy. So I'm I would like to ensure I get more than one voice saying agreed, please.
Agreed. I think the premises is quite unique and it's designed around activities such as this for children. I think it's quite important for teenagers to have some independence, and this is not primarily a licensed premises, it's primarily a cinema with other activities.
Thank you. Right, accompanied children and young persons will be permitted to access the premises to view age-appropriate films and take part in other activities as from time to time occur in the premises until 2200 or the end of the film or the end of a meal or private function to which they are invited. Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
No person under the age of 18 will be permitted to access the main bar, and all persons under the age of 18 will be required to order food and drinks at the dedicated under 18 bar area shown on the layout plan. Age verification checking will include young Scot cards and other pass cards, passports, driver's licenses, including provisional driver's licenses. Accompanied children and young persons performing in premises or taking part in computer gaming competitions will be permitted access to the premises for the period of the activity in addition to the hours stated above. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Right, so we have times age, birth to 17, times as per the terms above from 10 to 2200, and parts of the premises, all public parts of the premises. Agreed?
Agreed.
Right. Capacity, front terrace 50, real bar 100, screen 130, screen 2 142, screen 3 110, activity room 80 and the foyer 10. Total 622 persons. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
In which case, can I ask that we agree that this application is as we have detailed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hood.
Thank you very much. I'm most grateful to your honours, and I know my clients will be. I also want to thank the licensing team for permitting the cinema licence to be granted subject to appropriate certification being submitted to the council in before it opens, because that was against your normal mechanism for moving forward, and I'm very grateful because it will enable the licence and the cinema license to open at the same time. Thank you.
You're welcome, and we wish the project all the best.
Thank you.
And can I hand over to the convener?
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Thank you very much. Okay, members, that concludes agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 5, premises licences request to vary under the Licensing Scotland Act 2005. And the first one is Sunny's Bar and Kitchen, 2 Mattocks Road, Dundee. I'm not sure whether there's anybody here to represent them or speak to that application or not, but I note, and I'd really like a bit of an update from Mrs. Tom, if that's possible, because I noticed that we haven't had any update, I believe, until I changed my screen since the 4th of August. Is that correct? Could you maybe update members, because this may be another deferral, I think. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you, convener. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we have now received a late application for building warrant approval to convert the function suite to a mini market. It was submitted on the 31st of August. The target date for assessment of the application is on or before the 27th of September. Therefore, we've received the application, but we have not assessed or approved it at this time, and therefore no completion certificate has been submitted or accepted, and no site inspections carried out by our department. There was an enforcement notice issued, however, the terms have lapsed. Also, the previous lapsed application, application reference 15112 end on 6. There's been no further progress that has been noted on this. However, I would note this can be addressed alongside the process of dealing with the current late application.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson, can I get a bit of advice? Would it be pertinent here to defer this application until we have all these?
Hello.
Mr. Thompson?
Sorry, convener, has someone spoken there?
Yeah, hello there. My name's Mariam Hyatt. I'm not sure if you're aware I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, can I just get a bit of advice from the legal team, please, and then
Yeah,
I'll come
sorry.
back.
Yeah, no
that's
problem.
okay.
Sorry, convener. I mean, if there are concerns about the suitability of the premises at the moment, then it is open to the board to defer consideration of the matter for the resolution of those issues.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, convener. Yes, I will move deferral until we are satisfied with the premises.
Can we just hear then from if Mrs. Hyatt's here, just what stages that we're at then with your application and your procedures with building control, please, Mrs.
Hi
Hyatt, if you
there.
don't mind.
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so basically, in regards to the 2018 works, we took over in 2019. When we took over, I was not aware of anything that was outstanding regarding building work. Only when the fire safety officer came out in June, he made us aware that there was incomplete work, and he gave me a list of all the things that needed to be done. We completed everything bar one thing, which was to do with the fire exit door in the function hall. On his last visit, he was satisfied with all the other work that we had completed and that we just had to complete that one more thing, and which we completed the very next day. I was not advised that I need to let him know or, send him something that work's been done. So I must have misunderstood, but we have completed the work that was sent out that he asked us to do in 2019 when he last came out. In regards to the latest building warrant issue, again, I was not aware that I need to apply for a building warrant and we converted the function hall into SPAR. SPAR had advised me to get in touch with the council and to ask about permission. So when I phoned Angus Council, they forwarded me to a certain department and said, so I spoke to him and told him what the situation was and what we wanted to do. And he advised me, yeah, that sounds okay. That doesn't sound like a complicated thing because we weren't changing any building walls or structures or anything. We were just literally using the space in the function hall to make a shop. So he asked me to put it into an email and send it to him, which I did. I didn't get a reply for a couple of months actually, and then he advised me to put it, submit it online, which I did. I submitted the planning permission online, which are as well. I sat down with them and they helped me complete this. Again, at that point, nobody made me aware that I need to apply for a building warrant for this. I was only told to just put in a planning permission application. Only when I was applying for the license that Chris Ferrier got in touch with Tracy Candy and made her aware that there's some outstanding work that's not been completed. And then I was sent a letter from Chris for an enforcement or building notice. Again, I was concerned because I didn't know anything about this. I spoke to Chris on the phone and explained to him, look, I wasn't aware. And it's through CJ Lang that we're doing this. And if I can, so he said, oh, if it's through CJ Lang, can you send me all the plans and things? So, which then I spoke to Mike from CJ Lang and asked him, forwarded on Chris's email with whatever he wanted from him, from us. And Mike then forwarded it on to an architect. An architect came out, made a plan, and he has submitted that to Chris. I don't know what's happening after that. All I know is when I chased it up 2 weeks ago, I was told that this has been submitted and that we're just waiting for them to get back to us to let us know if there's anything else that needs to be done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Whiteside, question?
Thanks, convener. I'm just wondering if it would be possible to deal with the licensing issues today, subject to satisfactory approval of the building, etc. In that way, that would save some time for everybody.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Mr. Thompson, can you advise on what Councillor Whiteside's just asked? Can we deal with this licence application today, subject to our relevant departments being satisfied?
I think ultimately, convener, there is an issue at the moment regarding the condition of the premises. I think I'm right in saying that they are in operation at the moment, but I would I would be suggesting if these issues are not resolved within a period of time that the board can specify, that we would bring matters back to the board to consider a potential review of the premises licence.
So it would be permissible for us to grant today, subject to the works being finished by a certain time.
Yes, and if they weren't completed, convener, then we would bring the matter back before the board.
Okay, members, a reasonable time scale then, what would be, is there anything in statute, Mr. Thompson, or is it just we pick a time?
Given, convener, that we were looking at possibly bringing this matter back to the November board, then I would suggest that the works would need to be completed by the end of November. Is that a reasonable period of time? I think I'd defer to Mrs. Tom on this about whether matters are capable of being resolved within that period.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think so. Yeah, sorry, councillor. Yeah, that would be reasonable for us, I would imagine.
Okay, well, what I'm seeing on the report, I don't have it on my screen just now, but I did read it just a few minutes ago, is that everything is within policy. So if members are minded, I am going to move we grant this, but subject to all the works being completed by the 30th of November. Is that, and to Mrs. Tom's departments and our officers' satisfaction, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Councillor Moore?
Yes, convener, we're talking about the work being done satisfactorily, or it comes back to the board. So if it's not done satisfactorily, it's coming back to the board anyway, and I did move deferral. If we set it to the end of November, the period for works to be done, that goes beyond our November meeting. So if we are not, we would then have to bring it to our January meeting of the board if it didn't comply. So I would suggest that if we are going to follow this path, then we need to be setting a date prior to our board meeting, and therefore prior to the report being written for the board meeting.
Mrs. Anderson, what date is our November meeting?
It's the 25th of November.
Okay then, Councillor Moore, do you have a suggested date
When
then?
when do the officers have to publish? That would be about the 18th. So the report would have to be written for about the 15th.
So are we looking then something like the 10th of November? The works have got to be completed, so our officers have got time?
I would suggest that would be more reasonable, convener.
Right, okay. I will move then that the works are completed by the 10th of November and the licence will be granted subject to that, but obviously if it's not, then it will come back to the board meeting in the November meeting. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, Mrs. Hyatt, are you clear about that now?
Yes, I just need to make sure that the work is completed. I mean, as far as I know, it's just the building. It's been submitted, and if there's anything else they need to know, they will get back to the architect to ask if there's, more things that they need to know. So apart from that, there's nothing else I need to do.
I don't think so. Mrs. Tom will keep you right. Just keep in touch with her department, but as quickly as you can, if that's possible. Councillor Fairweather?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of miscommunication going on here. Can we make sure that the officers and the applicant are well versed in getting in touch with each other and getting this resolved?
Yes.
Yes, I think that's been made clear as well. Mrs. Tom's nodding her head and Mrs. Hyatt has agreed to do so, so that it doesn't come back to a meeting in November and it's dealt with before.
Yeah, as soon as I was made aware of it, I was on the phone to Chris, to try and sort it out, and I spoke to CJ Lang, and they sent an architect to get the work submitted, and as far as I know, it's getting done just now. So as soon as they get back, Chris gets back to us to let us know if there's anything else he needs, and we will get that resolved as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, members, the next one is the Grey Harlings Hotel, 5 Trail Drive in Montrose, and we have Mr. Watson, the applicant, here to speak to this one. Mr. Watson.
Hi there. Can I just say it's actually going to be Miss Chloe Henderson that's going to be talking for Grey Harlings?
Yes, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Okay, Miss Henderson.
Hi there. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I'm just going to keep this talk to the application quite brief. And I am aware that everyone should have the information that we've submitted on various occasions already. So you can split our application to vary our premise licence into 4 main areas, which are amendment to core hours, an amendment to the layout plan, an amendment to the children and young persons access and conditions, which is relevant to the amendment of the layout plan, and also an increase in capacity. So if you don't mind, I'll just go into those headings one by one and just chat about them briefly. So as you know, we are a hotel here. We are requesting to amend our core hours ever so slightly. From the current on sales hours, Monday to Thursday are until 2200 hours. We are looking to amend that by 1 hour to end at 2300 hours. Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we currently have on sales hours from 11 AM to 2400 hours, and we are not seeking to change that. So the only change we are looking to make is Monday to Thursday, and that change is within board policy. And that is to allow us the grace of an extra hour in serving our hotel residents within the premises. Moving on just quickly there to the amendment to the layout. So we are looking to extend the area that we currently have licensed as the gazebo to include the decked area which it sits on. It's not a large area, it is just the base in which the gazebo sits on, and it's more of a formality to make sure that that's updated on the layout plan, and also to extend the outdoor licensed area that we have at the moment to include benches within a portion of the grassed area to the west of the building. So that's just outside our courtyard area. We've been successfully operating that area under occasional licences since April without any issues. So again, this is just a formality to extend that into our premise licence. We have previously agreed to conditions with regards to our outdoor area, which are the standard conditions, as you are obviously aware, that the patrons are not permitted to use those outdoor areas beyond 2100 hours. We do not provide any music externally in those outdoor areas, and we don't have any music or amplified sound played from within the building with the purpose or hope that it is heard outside. And we agree still with those conditions. We are not seeking to change them. We are happy to keep on with that. So with the changes to the layout, obviously we will need to amend the current children and young persons access. At the moment, the terms state that non-resident children will be permitted within the restaurant, lounge, inner and outer halls and the guest house grounds. Should the licensed area be extended to include the benches on the grassed portion, we will need to update those terms to include being accompanied by a responsible adult, in addition to the hotel grounds being put in those terms there. And with regards to the times for the children and young persons access, we are not seeking to change them. They will remain at the current hours between 700 and 2100 hours. And the local children's conditions will remain in place that we have at the moment already. And lastly, we are looking to increase the capacity from 30 persons, which was previously awarded at the inception of our current premise licence, to the maximum 150 persons. That number has come from the Section 50 information, which was provided by Building Standards on a previous evaluation, and they have agreed that they are satisfied with that. And that will just mean that our capacity throughout the building and the extended areas outside is reflected accurately on our licence. So, as I say, that's a brief summary to what we have applied for. We would welcome any questions or comments, anything like that, and we're quite happy to go into more detail if required. But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, Miss Henderson. Capacity is increasing fivefold. Can you tell me how many that is allowing for inside and outside?
Yeah, that's no problem at all. Sorry, I'll just get that in front of me. Yeah, so that would be for 50 people inside, and that would take the total outside to 70 persons.
So, sorry, how many inside?
50.
50 inside, 70 outside.
Sorry, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, 50 inside and 70 outside.
Yes, that's right.
And
So
that's
we have
120.
Yes, so we've requested the full 150 capacity because that's what we'd been advised that we could safely hold previously with regards to the current sanitary options in the building at the moment. So we just wanted to make sure that we were covered. Sorry, I think I've made a mistake there. I think it was 80 people inside. Keith has just corrected me there.
80 inside, 70 out, right. And you said you've been getting occasional licences since April without issues.
That's correct. I'm aware that we have had an objection from a neighbouring residential property, which has been ongoing. But with regards to the actual physical operation of the area, there has been no issues, no incidents, nothing to report, and we've been working very closely with the licensing team and continue to do that with regards to any objections received.
Well, I'm looking at the plan, and this is something that has been coming back to the board regularly, and that is the 6-foot timber fence and a hole in it, so residents and non-residents can walk through that gap into the grassed area that is beside the objector. And I'm just wondering, you know, how you can close that area off to address one of the problems that the objector is raising.
So we've gone back to this particular point in the objection multiple times before, and we have been working closely with the licensing team and also Damien Brennan from the planning department also. We have put up that fence there to provide a physical barrier to ensure that there isn't any unauthorised access around there with regards to people who may be drinking in the outdoor areas, or indeed generally just visitors to the site. With regards to the fence being in close proximity to one of our external fire exits, we have not closed that fence off at the moment. But the fence itself and the construction of that 6-foot solid construction in terms of construction of the fence is quite a substantial barrier at the moment. And with regards to the fire exit, we don't want to close that off. However, we have been in talks with Damien at the planning with regards to options that we can do to close it off fully if that is required. But we also have lots of other measures and mitigations in place which have been documented in our application with regards to signage, with regards to staff, both management of visitors and training. And, you know, I think it's not an area where there is high traffic usually, and we've demonstrated that we can operate responsibly as it is at the moment. Should there ever be a situation where anyone has accessed the rear garden to the back of the building, then we are confident that we would be able to identify that, remove them back into the designated area, and that would be reported by the on-duty staff to members of management at the time, and a record kept. But to date, we haven't had any issues with that. And I think I won't go on any more regarding that point, as we have already previously answered that in quite a lot of detail.
Right, but there's nothing to stop children from running out of the licensed area into that unlicensed area, running around, screaming and shouting.
I take your point. I completely respect that, but there won't be any children here that aren't attending without a suitable adult. The staff are here and they work throughout the indoor and outdoor areas to manage visitor movement around the area. There are, obviously the owners are on site all the time, so there is always people here around. The signage is there. You know, this has to be a reasonable request for us to take to make sure that we can still operate in that respect. And I don't think we've not had an issue with that so far. I don't think it would be fair to challenge that on the future possibility of that happening, but I appreciate your comment.
We do have a patio area that guests are allowed to use.
Sorry, and Keith has just added there, I'm not sure if you heard, that there is a patio area to the rear which people who are not drinking, residents, we believe, are able to use, but because of the actual the physical logistics of managing that on a daily basis, we have chosen to shut off the rear of the building anyway. So I think it's fair to say we've taken reasonable steps with regards to this.
It's a third of the garden ground.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Whiteside, question, thank you.
Thanks, Convener. It's actually probably more of a point of clarification, but thank you very much, Ms Henderson, for your very clear presentation there. That was useful. I think the last time this application came to the board, we deferred purely to get clarification from building standards, and I see that they're now content. So I would move that we just go to approve the application.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. I note that the objector's agent is here. Ms Birrell, do you wish to speak to the members?
Yeah, I would actually, if that's okay, Your
Absolutely.
Honours. So the board members will have received a copy of our letter that we sent in July, and it's not my intention to go through the letter and repeat all that detail, but just to really summarise the main points. So our grounds for objection to the application are that the application is inconsistent with the licensing objectives of preventing public nuisance, preventing crime and disorder and securing public safety, and also having regard to the planning position with regard to the fence. My clients have resided at Little Harling since December 2013, and their property is located immediately adjacent to Grey Harlings. Now, in that time, Grey Harlings has gone from a house operating as a hostel to a hotel or potentially a large pub with a beer garden, hosting parties, weddings and events both indoors and outdoors. And my clients have been increasingly disturbed by the activities that have been carried on at the premises, including noise, bright lights and antisocial behaviour. They have complained to the operators due to noise from customers, including audible swearing, live music and disturbance from lights that were erected in the external area, but no action has been taken by the operators to minimise their disturbance. During the summer of last year, my clients lodged a complaint with the licensing board with regard to the serving of alcohol in unlicensed areas of the premises and the installation of a speaker and television in the external areas, all contrary to the conditions which are currently attached to the premises licence. As I understand it, police did attend, but no further action was taken. As I understand it, the police were not aware of the conditions attached to the premises licence, and that drinking outside was only permitted in certain areas. Licence Standards Officer did attend the premises after the event and was given reassurances from the operator, but no further action was taken. My client's enjoyment and related amenity of the properties being interfered with as a result of the operation of the premises. And they can only conclude that this will be exacerbated, particularly given the prior history of disturbance, if the extent of the external area and the occupancy capacity are increased in terms of the application. Now, we did receive a letter from the operator in response to our objection. If I could just address some of the comments there. The licence holders have said that it's not their intention to dramatically change the current operations or activities at Grey Harlings or hold large-scale events or functions. A fivefold increase in capacity would maybe suggest otherwise, and if it's not the intention to change the operation, why is such a big increase in capacity needed? As discussed in our letter, this increase in occupancy will further impact on our clients and their enjoyment and amenity of their home and the surrounding area in relation to parking and increased congestion due to the increasing numbers of customers. The capacity increase said to be in line with Section 50 certificate from food hygiene approval, and building standards had commented previously that in order to increase the capacity to 150, further toilet provision would be needed, and with current provision, the maximum capacity would be 75 customers. This seems to have now been agreed with building standards, and the capacity has been accepted as 150. My clients are not seeking to undermine a local business and are not looking to stop Grey Harlings operating. They understand that the last 18 months or so have been difficult for the hospitality trade, but they also want to be able to enjoy their home and garden, and there needs to be some balance between a considerate, responsible operator operating their business and my clients' enjoyment and amenity of their home. My clients acknowledge there have been no incidents recently and suspect this is due to the coronavirus restrictions which have been in place, with numbers and licensed premises being restricted. The clients fear that this will change now that restrictions have been lifted. With regard to the grassed area, we've discussed the planning position in our letter. Planning consent clearly states that a boundary enclosure or similar barrier that prevents access to the grassed area between the building and my client's property is to be provided. This has not been done, and from the photographs supplied by the operator, the fence would not obstruct the path of exit from the building. As it is now, access can be gained by anyone into the grassed area. My clients have contacted the planning department, who have advised them that there's now a planning enforcement investigation in process. My clients also want to make it clear that the photograph at Appendix 1 of our letter was taken from the boundary wall of their property and not from within the grounds of Grey Harling, and shows the proximity of the beer garden to their home. In summary, the proposal to extend the outside drinking area and the increase in capacity from 30 persons to 150 is too extensive for the size of the premises given the proximity of my client's home. If the application is granted, this will further materially affect the enjoyment of the property, which is, as you will know, is in a rural area. There's fields all around, the 18th green of the golf course is in front of them, and any noise which comes from the hotel causes disturbance. There's no other noise to counteract the noise which comes from the hotel. The operator has repeatedly said that there's no intention to change the operation of Grey Harlings, but the increase in capacity would suggest otherwise, as would the past history of events which have taken place at the premises. The operator has said they've given reassurances and addressed concerns, but there's been repeated disturbance to my clients. They have complained directly to the operator on more than one occasion, but their concerns have not been addressed and no action has been taken to alleviate the disturbance suffered by my clients. As I've said previously, my clients don't want to stop Grey Harlings from operating. However, they do want to be able to enjoy their home and garden without disturbance and are looking for a balance to allow this, with Grey Harlings operating responsibly and with consideration for their neighbours. I would ask that the board members give consideration to this objection and ask that the application is refused or at least conditioned to restrict outdoor area used nearest to my client's home and to restrict numbers, particularly in outside areas on the grounds, that is inconsistent with the licence objectives, preventing public nuisance, preventing crime and disorder and securing public safety. For the reasons that I've talked about today and also detailed in our letter of the 23rd of July and having regard to the planning position.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Could you clarify to me, did you say you believe there's a planning enforcement case ongoing? Did you say that just now?
Yes, I did. Yes, my clients have been informed.
What's that for?
That's with regard to the barrier.
Okay, do we have anybody from planning on the call that can confirm that? Mrs. Tom, you're not really planning, are you? You're building standards, but
I do have access to the system, so I can check, but no, I'm not planning.
no. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, to advise the board that the planning authority are aware of issues in relation to this property, and are working to resolve that. I'm not really in a position to advise further, but what I would say is that there are certain instances where planning is relevant to liquor licensing. However, the fact that an application took before the board is not does not have the benefit of planning permission, or that there may be planning issues, is not strictly speaking relevant to the board, and it's really a matter for resolution by the planning authority. However, that doesn't mean that the board cannot consider that for whatever reason, and having regards to the statutory tests, that the premises are not suitable for the proposed activity. However, it's not enough just to say that it doesn't have planning permission. So they're very much two separate systems. But as I say, I can advise that the planning authority are aware of issues in relation to this matter.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Councillor Durno, a question?
Can I just ask the applicants, your outdoor area, is the covering on the outdoor area like a temporary covering? It's not an actual, you know, a total weatherproof structure, is it?
So there isn't actually a covering on the area that we're looking to extend. The part where we referenced the gazebo on decking, that is a standalone gazebo which is already licensed under the premise licence. So the areas where we are looking to extend that are not under cover.
So obviously if it was a howling gale and rain, you wouldn't be using it. You'd only be using it if it was a nice day.
Yes.
And we're coming up to winter, so you're not going to be using it an awful lot unless it's a really nice day.
That's correct, yes.
Right, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? I've actually got one for Mrs. Corletto. Mrs. Corletto, can you confirm to me with the report and your report and the application that everything that's before us today is within our policy, and also it can be there's conditions written in there too? Should we agree this today?
Yes, I can confirm it's all in policy and conditions can be attached, yes.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Corletto. Okay, members, comments then? Councillor Whiteside, thank you.
I'd like to move that we approve this application. I think it was deferred already. I think we've covered the issues that we needed to be covered. So that's my position.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whiteside. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Convener. Yes, it may be a planning issue, but on the drawings that we've received and the assurances we've had in the documentation, the area to the east of the site, as shown on the plan that we have, page 58, we are supposed to have that closed off. Now, I know that the applicant's saying that they're looking at it, that because it's close to an emergency exit, they're not sure what to do. They're talking to planning. I would suggest at the least they put a gate there in order to stop disturbance, and it will also stop noise. I've said this time and time again, but it doesn't seem to have happened. So I'm still not happy that that hasn't been done.
I think from what I can gather, though, they're in discussions with the planning department now, and there is an enforcement case going on. I think that was my understanding. So I am hoping that that will be covered within that with these discussions with our officers.
Right, I have just checked our website, the council website. There is no record of a planning enforcement case having been raised.
Okay, but I do believe they are in discussions with the planning department, though. Is that correct?
And this has been going since April.
That's correct. We are in discussions and actively working with Damien Brennan of the planning department, and we have also spoken with Charles Colvin with regards to an enforcement. We obviously, this would have to come through proper channels as well, but to date they are satisfied with what we are doing and how we are progressing. And as far as we are aware, it is not yet closed. We are waiting further information back from Damien himself.
But you're working with them, that's fine.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Fairweather.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to second Councillor Whiteside, but can I also add that perhaps considering Councillor Moore's comments, that we put that in as a condition that that's dealt with ASAP.
Okay, let's then go to the report. Anyone else? Any other comments? What would your wording of your condition be, Councillor Fairweather?
Never thought of that, did I?
May I suggest that, similar to Sunny's, that the works are to satisfaction of the planning department by the 10th of November, otherwise it comes back to the board.
Well done, Councillor Moore. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Right, okay, members, we'll go to the application then. Description of variation 1, the core times, are they agreed?
Sorry, I think Mr. Thompson maybe wants to come in regarding that condition.
My apologies, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, convener. It's just to say that I've mentioned that there is a planning process and that that has to be dealt with by the planning authority, and it's not strictly speaking relevant for the licensing board. However, in determining applications to vary, the board is entitled to take into account the suitability of the premises and have regard to the licensing objectives. So there is a discretion on the part of the board to apply conditions to licenses. And if the board considers that there's an issue in respect of one of the licensing objectives, then it can apply conditions in that regard. So from what I'm hearing from the board, are the board minded to ask that the area and the fence actually be closed?
I think that's what their intention is, Mr. Thompson. Yes.
And that would be, sorry, that would be having regard to the suitability of the premises, preventing public nuisance.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that would be something that the board could do of its own right, if it's concerned about the suitability of the premises and the impact of the variation on neighbouring proprietors.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Councillor Whiteside?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether it's appropriate for us to make that decision, given that the planning department will have better knowledge regarding fire exits, etc.
Yeah, I think we've got to deal with the report that's in front of us today and let the planning department do their they're in conversation with Miss Henderson. She actually mentioned one of the enforcement officers' names there a minute ago. So it's obviously being looked at. I would suggest that we deal with the report that's in front of us, and I'm quite sure that the two officers that's dealing with it from the planning side will deal with it. Councillor Fairweather?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, right, I'm quite sure now after this conversation, right, with the board members, that the applicants and the officers are aware of right, what needs to be done.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durno.
I just wish to add that it's a beautiful building, and I often used to pass it when I took my children to nursery, my grandchildren, and I wish you well with your application, and I hope everything gets resolved for you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Okay then, members, we've got the application in front of us. Description of variation 1, the times, is that agreed?
Agreed.
2, the layout, is that agreed?
Mr. Thompson has his hand up, convener.
Sorry, I've changed my screen. I can't see that. Mr. Thompson?
Convener, I've just distracting for the objector wants to come in at this point.
Oh, my apologies. When I change to my screen for my reports, I can't see the actual team screen. Ms. Birrell, sorry, my apologies.
Hello, sorry, no, it's okay. I just wanted to say, Councillor Moore said that he couldn't see any trace of an enforcement notice. My client's actually just emailed me correspondence from planning, and I have a reference number for the planning enforcement case. So I can forward that on to yourself if that's useful, just so that you can see that there is a planning enforcement case ongoing at the moment. Just that Councillor Moore had said that he couldn't see any trace of that, but there is actually one there.
Councillor Moore?
Yeah, I'm quite happy if there is one ongoing, I just couldn't see it on our website.
Yes, I think Miss Henderson did mention one of the enforcement officers, so if he's been involved, I'm quite sure there's definitely one ongoing. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Right, sorry guys, where did we get to? Number 3, outdoor area, is that agreed?
Agreed.
And the children's conditions, you've got the terms there and the times 4A and B, that agreed?
Agreed.
And 5, the capacity, which the building standards and that happy with, from 30 to 150, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, Miss Henderson and Mr. Watson, your application has been granted, and I'm quite assured today that you are speaking with our officers, and that that you will resolve the sort of outstanding issue, and that'll be fine. So, and all the best for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Convener, please can you note my dissent?
Dissent for what, Councillor Moore? The whole application? Okay, Mrs. Anderson, I think that's duly noted. Thank you. Okay, next one, 5C, the Brown Horse Hotel in Brechin. Mr. Reynolds, you've been very patient, but you may speak to your application now.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
Firstly, apologies, I did not attend the last meeting. I notified the board by email that I had to go to chemo at 9 Wells. But I was told because there were no objections, it would be straightforward. So I was a wee bit disappointed to get a deferral letter, but I'm here now, so I need to answer whatever questions you had for me.
No, I think we've got the report actually in front of us. I don't think this. We can ask the members. I'll change back to my screen. I think this is quite a straightforward one by the looks of it to me. Is there any questions for Mr. Reynolds? No. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds, what sort of barrier are you proposing to put between the drinking area and the rest of the car park?
There is a wall on the far side of the car park that's been in existence since the pub was built. The area that we will use will be defined probably by large pot planters, which we actually saw in Glasgow. Are you still there? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my phone's ringing. Large-scale pot plant type structures, which will define an area for only maybe 20 people to sit outside. It's not something we're planning to use on a regular basis, but if the weather permits it, and with social distancing being important, we felt we had to define an area without going to extreme cost, because as you can imagine, it's not easy just now finding money. So large planters or a picket type fence to differentiate between the car park and the drinking area.
Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking of public safety and somebody driving into where all the drinkers were, just making sure that the area was properly defined.
It would have to be defined. We have a problem with the car park anyway, Councillor, that people use it just willy-nilly, so it's actually going to help us to control the car park.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, anyone? Any other questions? Comments? No comments. Okay, I'll just change my. Oh, sorry, when I change my screen, I can't see. Councillor Moore.
Move to approve, Convener.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do. We'll just do as we've done before. So we've got the description of the variations. Do we agree? Number 1, the core times.
Agreed.
Agreed.
2, activities. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. 3, any other activities? Are they agreed?
Agreed.
4, the children's conditions. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
5, increase from 205 persons to 220. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, it was worth the wait for you. Your application has been approved, and I hope your health improves, and all the best to you for the future.
Thank you.
Okay, members, 4D is the Old Masons Arms, 135 to 139 East High Street, Forfar. I'm going to ask Mr. Thompson to update the board members on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. We have received a number of late objections in respect of this matter, and the board can admit late objections if it considers that there are good reasons for doing so. However, we would normally afford the applicant the opportunity of addressing the board on whether or not those late objections should be submitted or considered by the board. Neither the applicant, we've been advised that neither the applicant or their solicitor are able to attend today. And because of this, my advice to the board would be that it should adjourn this item until the meeting of the board in November to allow us to provide copies of the late objections to the applicant and to allow them to make representations at the board in November and then allow the board to continue to consider the matter. There is issues that we need to seek clarification on in respect of the confirmation notice as well. So I would be inviting the board to defer this application for the reasons I've just stated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Yes, I agree with what you've said, and it's only right that the applicant has a chance to see these late objections and respond to us about them. So, members, I'm going to move we defer this one. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. The next one is the Thrums Hotel in Kirriemuir. Good afternoon again, Mrs. Hood. Mrs. Hood still on the call?
Sorry, I beg your pardon. I forgot to unmute myself. I do apologise. This is an application basically to bring the temporary situation at the rear of the Thrums Hotel into permanent use. It's a major variation to ensure that the external area forms part of the premises licence. The external area has been in place for over a year and there have been no issues with regard to the running of that area of which I am aware. The applicant is well known to your honours. He's been in the premises for over 30 years and I think he's been known to you in a good way. The premises are an hotel in the residential and commercial area in the town centre of Kirriemuir. The capacity of the premises is 160 and this will not be affected by the use of the external area, which will just be somewhere that people go obviously when the premises are when the weather actually is good enough for the premises to be used. My clients want to add in conferences and theatre. Now for conferences, we're not talking about COP 21, we're talking about small business meetings, perhaps to permit local businesses to get together to talk. Theatre would be performances by comedians, for instance, magicians, and that would be indoors only. And the indoor sports which they wish to put in place would be a pool table, would be indoors only. They want to increase the hours to start at 11 o'clock on every day for on and off sales, and this is in line with your honours policy. They also want the ability to operate from 7:30 before core hours with no alcohol sales being made. This is to offer breakfast, teas, coffees, snacks, etc., eat in and takeaways. And then inside, recorded music, receptions, etc. will take place there. Children and young persons, they're required to reflect the fact the premises are actually an hotel, so they would have access to all parts of the premises except immediately in front of the bar. There is no access to the bar by any person under the age of 18, and accompanied children non-resident children and young persons can access the premises until 9 o'clock only or till the end of a private function. Should there be any young persons in the premises at all, they would be served at the table. The seasonal variations are per your honours policy. Challenge 25 will obviously take place and staff are properly trained to prevent underage sales, and any refusals for either underage sales or for drunks will be recorded in the book, which will be accessible to the police and the licensing standards officers. The layout plan has obviously been amended to reflect the external area. There is good disabled access throughout the premises and in the external area. prevention of crime. Staff are trained to monitor and observe customers and to prevent underage sales and any issues arising. Ditto prevention of public nuisance. The premises will be constantly monitored. Premises staff will secure public safety. Challenge 25, etc. will protect children from harm, and there is a large selection of soft drinks and food available on the premises. The police and the environmental services have made the same conditions, which my clients are happy to accept. The patrons will not be permitted to use the drinking area beyond 2100 hours. This, of course, is with the exception of it being used as a smoking area. This has come up before your honours before with the occasional licences, and you had stated then you'd prefer people to smoke in the rear of the premises where this is, rather than on the main street. But no alcohol will be permitted in the area after 9 o'clock. No music will be permitted in the external area. No amplified sound within the external area. With regard to building standards, a comment was received. Thank you very much, Ms. Tom, for this. A building warrant application has now been submitted by my clients, and this area will not be erected or used until a building standards completion certificate is granted. My understanding is there are no objections from any party. Thank you for listening to me, and I move the grant.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hood. Any questions? Comments? I know, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I was just looking at the floor plan, and I note that any children wanting to go from the children's area, etc., have got to pass the bar in order to be able to get to the toilets. Is there any way that it can be avoided?
Well, I think this is honestly perfectly normal in most licensed premises nowadays. The fact that children are passing the bar, I think, has been accepted virtually not just across Angus, but across Scotland. There is no way to avoid that because of where people would be sitting, and the application is to ensure that children can sit within the premises but not access the bar. They are not allowed to go to the bar to obtain any form of service, whether soft drinks, snacks or meals. Any young persons under the age of 18 would be served by members of staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both. Anyone else? Questions? Comments? I notice the police letter is not an objection. It's comments, and I think that very valid comments, but they're covered within the conditions anyway. So that's fine, unless does Police Scotland want to comment, because I notice it's not an objection, is it?
No, not an objection. We're more than happy if Janet's saying that they're going to agree.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Got the variation in front of us, the application. 1 core hours, do we agree?
Agree.
2 activities, do we agree?
Agree.
3 other activities, do we agree?
Agreed.
Children and young persons to include A and B, times and parts, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Capacity, is that agreed?
Agreed.
And the 6th and the last one, the addition of a permanent external area on the layout, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much again, Mrs. Hood, and you can tell your client that his application has been granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Convener, your honours. My clients will be very grateful.
Members, the final one on this agenda item is Strathmore Rugby Club. The applicant wishes the application at this point in time. If we agree to defer that, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Could I just explain the reason for this, Convener? The reason for this is because there has been some sort of slip between the applicant's initial architects and the building standards team within Angus Council. And I'm having a meeting with the club on Monday night to ensure that these matters are resolved, and then a proper application will be put in to Miss Tom's department as soon thereafter as possible.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, members. Agenda item number 6 applications for occasional licenses, and the first one is the Royal Hotel in Forfar. I believe no one is attending for this one, so as there's no really question, but is there any, have we got any questions of any of our officers on this one? No. Okay. Any comments? Councillor Whiteside, thank you.
Yeah, if the applicant are not willing to follow the local conditions, surely we can't approve this.
There's additional conditions there that has been put on, hasn't there, at the bottom?
It states that they're not willing to comply with the normal conditions as far as music, etc.
Yeah, I see that too. Mrs. Corletto, can you maybe update us on this one?
Yes, convener. Because of a complaint that was received in July about music being heard by a neighbour, and it wasn't until I investigated this that it turned out that the rooftop terrace wasn't actually licensed, and Mr. Stewart had been using the area since he took over the premises way back in 2015. Obviously, I told him that he couldn't use the area, and he was advised to put in occasional licenses, which he's done so. But like Councillor Whiteside said, he's not willing to accept the conditions because it will be detrimental to his working practice. So that's why they're in front of you today.
Well, conditions are put there for a reason, to protect patrons and to protect the public, I would have thought. So, Councillor Whiteside, do you want to come back?
Well, yeah, I just don't think it's acceptable if some licensees are saying they won't comply with the conditions that everybody else has to comply with. So I don't think we can agree to this.
I agree with you. Councillor Moore?
Yes, convener, you, I and the local member have approved previous occasional licenses prior to the meeting. I would suggest that we move approval with the conditions. If the applicant does not wish to comply with them, then we can call his entire licence in for review, or he can just not use the area at all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown? You're on mute, Councillor Brown.
Okay.
Yes, can hear you now.
The Royal Hotel is in the centre of Forfar, highly populated, and for one household to make a complaint on behalf, it's not on behalf of the residents round about. There are, I would say, about 6 licensed premises in that area, and I can't see why they can pick out the Royal Hotel.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Convener, I can't see from the papers before me where the licence holder has indicated that he doesn't accept the conditions.
I'm sure I read something like that as well, though, but Councillor Whiteside will maybe enlighten us.
Yes, it's under the section, the objection from environmental health on page 88. It says, environmental health have objected to the occasional licence unless the following conditions are applied to the licence, but the applicant states that they would not be willing to comply with these as their business would suffer and the premises would not be viable.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. That's much appreciated. It's open to the board to. I would also note that there was an indication from the premises licence holder that a major variation will be submitted in respect of the use of this area. It's open to the board to grant the occasional licences subject to the conditions, and a failure to comply with those would be an enforcement matter. And ultimately, given where we are with this, if there are further occasionals, then these will be presented to the board for determination, which would allow the board to monitor the issue in future.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Well, members, on that basis then, I am going to move that we grant them, but with these conditions, and if these conditions are not adhered to, then this matter will come back before this board to be dealt with. And that's what these Councillor Whiteside is absolutely right. These conditions are put there to protect not only the licence holders, the patrons that use it, but members of the public as well. So I'll not go as hard as refusing it. However, I am going to say I will move to grant this, but these conditions must be adhered to. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. The next one's Stag Hotel, and I know that there's no one attending for this because they're not available today. So again, there might just be questions for the Mrs. Corletto. Is there any questions from members? No. Comments, Councillor Moore?
Yes, convener. The applicant has indicated that they are considering a major variation application. However, a letter that was sent to a previous occasional said that they weren't prepared to look at that until next year because they weren't prepared to expend the money when they couldn't get business back to cover the cost. So do we send these, approve these these occasional licenses, but make it clear that we will be looking for a major variation to be submitted prior to any further applications? We're not saying that we wouldn't approve any more occasional licenses, just that we are looking for the major variation to come through.
Okay. Sorry, Mrs. Corletto, I take it you've had this conversation with them, if you've managed to meet them yet, because I know you're relatively new in post.
Convener, I haven't the licence holder, and as far as I'm aware, no major application has been received, and I don't know when they're intending on submitting it.
But as you say, we've got to deal with these applications on their own merit, and it's something that obviously, if too many occasionals, it'll be brought to our attention that they're applying for all these occasionals, won't it?
Yes.
Okay then, Councillor Moore, are you happy that?
Convener,
Yes, Mrs. Anderson.
Sorry, Convener, just to make you aware that at the board meeting on the 12th, it was actually minuted that we asked for a major variation. So that was part of the board agreement on the 12th of August, that on page 12 of your papers, that the application was agreed at that time, but that the board looked for a major variation application.
Okay, well, maybe it's because of the time of year that it's coming into. I don't know, but I think on this occasion I'm going to move that we grant these, but and I think Mrs. Corletto will make it plain to them that really we're actually looking for a major variation and not all these occasional licenses. Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next one's the Market Arms, and it's Mrs. Hood again, I think.
Thank you very much, Convener, Your Honours. My client, West Bay Fisheries Gourden Limited and Willem and Sharon Dorward, I think are well known to you in a good way. The premises are well run and managed in a compliant manner, and as far as I'm aware, there have been no occasions when the Licensing Board or Police Scotland have had to take issue with their running of the premises. There was an issue with regard to the placement of the pavement area, which has been resolved, and that was a matter really for the Roads Department rather than anybody else. My clients instructed me to make a suite of 9 occasional licence applications for the Market Arms to operate a pavement cafe adjacent to the premises from June till the end of October of this year. The application referred to the premises licence AN 302 and to Mr. Dorward's personal licence AN 481. The premises, the Market Arms, do benefit from a full premises licence, and I think fall positively within the terms of paragraph 444 of Your Honour's licensing policy, which policy states, Angus Licensing Board acknowledges the Licensing Scotland Act doesn't provide regulations on the type of event an occasional licence may apply to. In actual fact, an occasional licence doesn't require an event in terms of the Licensing Scotland Act 2005. This was the case in terms of the Licensing Scotland Act 1976, but is no longer required in terms of law. Your policy goes on to state, excuse me, I beg your pardon, the board will generally look to the applicant to demonstrate that the occasional licence is required for a special event. Now, I'm not sure why that is in this particular part of the policy. This is to avoid occasional licence process being used as a means to circumvent the full premises licence process. Now, my client has a full premises licence. And then the policy goes on to state, the board will expect the applicant to submit a full premises licence application following the submission of no more than 4 occasional licence applications. Notwithstanding, the board will consider and determine each application on its merits. Now, my clients would be delighted to make an application to extend the premises licence onto the pavement cafe area if that type of application were likely to be countenanced not just by the board, but also by Angus Council. I imagine that should an application of that type succeed, it would require to be conditioned that the premises licence would incorporate the area of ground, 1, only if an annual pavement consent was granted by the Roads Department, and 2, if planning consent was granted for the use of the pavement. Now, this is unlikely to occur, and the Chief Planner's letter, which actually permits planning to not take any form of action lasts until March of next year. And that point was made at Your Honour's last meeting. Now, the operation of the pavement, the occasional licence and the pavement consent, there is a compliance clash. Pavement consent only lasts until 8 o'clock, whereas occasional licensing hours are normally granted until 9. My client was disappointed when the pavement licence came out stating that, and we would be requesting Your Honours to bring up with your colleagues in the rest of the council to seek to make these 2 aspects of grant come together, because it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense if one consent says 8 and the other one says 9 o'clock. My clients have obviously brought it back, their operation of the area, to 8 o'clock to comply with the lesser hours permitted. Now, my clients and I fully accept and fully agree with Angus Licensing Board's position in relation to the abuse of occasional licences by persons seeking to circumvent licensing legislation. And as you say, the Licensing Scotland Act doesn't deal with the matter, and an unlimited number of occasional licences are permissible with no requirement for an event. But I really do need to ask you to consider whether occasional licence applications which link to premises, as this one does, should fall within the terms of this policy. The premises exist. The market bar in Montrose exists. The service of food and drinks comes from within the market bar, and the occasional licence has been applied for in terms of the market bar's premises licence and my client's personal licence, and that personal licence is used by him as premises manager within the market bar. My clients do not feel they have fallen foul of your policy by merely trying to take advantage of use of a pavement as part of an existing premises licence. If this was a series of occasional licences, say for the empty shop next door, which didn't link to any other licence, my clients fully understand the reason for your policy, which is to prevent abuse of the licensing system moving forward in any form of perpetuity. The other point is that the grounds for refusal, which I've laid out in a written submission, I'm assuming that you've all had my written submission sent to you. Do you want me to go through the grounds for refusal? No. Well, my point that I'm trying to make with regard to that is none of them apply to this particular application because it doesn't fit within the legitimate grounds for refusal. My clients have asked me to point out that they have paid the fee to Angus Licensing Board. The fee was accepted. They have paid a fee to the Roads Department for pavement consent. I'm afraid to say I've also got to render a fee for my services, not just for the original submission, but for the 2 times I've had to appear before Your Honours in this particular matter. I wonder if it would be possible for Your Honours to consider, either today or at some point in the future, whether or not your restriction on the numbers of occasional licences should actually apply to premises which are fully licensed and merely taking an advantage of the use of an external area. I do not believe that this could be seen to be an abuse of the licensing process. And in fact, I actually believe it's probably the only way that external areas could, on pavements, could be used moving forward into the future. I think that the policy is actually clear, but I don't think it's being necessarily being picked up properly. And I do apologise for this by Your Honour's staff. My clients appear to be complying with the policy. They do appear to have, in fact, they do have a full premises licence. They're extending into an external area. This is not only advantageous for COVID, which of course it is, but it's also advantageous for business, with summers getting better, presumably. This is what we're all hoping. Being outside is obviously something that the public wish to do. If there were any problems with these occasional licences, I would expect Your Honours to immediately refuse one or to call my client in for a hearing. But I do not think it is reasonable, given everything and given the terms of your policy, to have my client called in for every occasional licence that he may have beyond 4 to ensure that Your Honours continue to approve it. These matters are capable of being dealt with under delegated powers. They do genuinely link to existing premises, and I ask Your Honours, 1, to move the grant if possible to the end of October, and 2, to reconsider the terms of your policy. Thanks very much for listening to me on this one.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Councillor Durno, a question?
Yeah. I was unmuted. Thanks, Mrs. Hood. I was actually on planning when this came through, and my understanding was that the time was for 8 o'clock, and that the applicant had to have all the tables and chairs from outside put away for 8 o'clock, because the residents in that area had to put their actual bins out for the night because it's on the main street. And therefore, I don't know why it would have to be for 9 o'clock, because this would obviously be a problem. Can you confirm this?
The matter of the bins, I believe, has been resolved between the neighbours and the premises licence holders. I don't think that is actually a particular issue. The issue is that no matter where in Angus one might have a pavement consent, the pavement consent is till 8 o'clock, whereas the licensing general consent for external areas is to 9 o'clock. So what I'm asking is whether or not those matters could be resolved between one arm of the council and the licensing board to have a confluence of hours, because my client initially got the occasional license, which of course he was prepared to display, and unfortunately, and I have to admit this, he failed, and this was brought up to my client and was resolved immediately. He failed to notice that the pavement consent was different to the occasional license consent.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. Obviously, we'll have to take in consideration that where it is, and it obviously is coming into winter again, as I keep telling everybody, it's going to be dark soon, and you know, chairs outside, etc. Would that mean they'd have a license? It means they'd have to stand outside because the chairs would have to be away by 8 o'clock. It just doesn't seem to be workable for the winter. It's okay for the summer.
It's only, the application is only till the end of October, Councillor Durno.
And soon in October. So
no, I realise that it's like to be dark soon, and this is not a matter that has been raised for other pavement consents within the area, and it's on a busy main street with lights. It's not in a dark wood where nobody would be able to see it. The premises are properly sectioned off as per the requirements of your Honours Roads Department. So I can't see there'd be any danger to the public whether or not it was light or dark.
Well, okay, thanks.
Can I ask, just before we hear from Councillor Moore, Mr Thompson or Mrs Carletto, is this something that can be raised with both the licensing team and the roads team to bring these times into line with each other so that one's not finishing an hour before the other one? Mr Thompson, thank you.
Yes, thank you, convener. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to raise this inconsistency with the Director of Infrastructure Services. And the roads consents are dealt with through the Communities Committee. So I have no difficulty with raising this issue, not necessarily in relation to these premises, but in principle.
Yes, okay. No, that's fine.
Ultimately, the Roads Authority have to make decisions based on their own legislation, which is the Road Scotland Act 1984, and the Licensing Board need to make their decisions on the Licensing Scotland Act 2005. But I can certainly convey the sentiments expressed today that there does appear to be an inconsistency.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Moore, question?
A suggestion and a question, convener. This council has set up a road safety member officer working group, which is looking at issues like this. And I was going to suggest that this was referred to them. The Director of Infrastructure and the Service Leader for Roads and Transportation are both involved with it. So they would be the people who would have to determine whether the policy changed from an officer point of view. They would then make a recommendation to Communities Committee. So I think that would be probably a useful route through to look at this matter. A question for Mrs Hood. What's proposed for next year then? If we're only giving occasionals to the end of October, when we come into the good weather next year, are we going to see more occasionals or are we going to see a variation?
I'm unable to answer what my client might wish to do next year, but the reason I'm questioning this is because your policy doesn't require a variation, it requires a premises licence. The premises licence already exists, and this is an adjunct to an existing premises licence. There is no attempt to circumvent licensing legislation with this, but to use legitimate means to permit an external cafe on ground not belonging to my client. Now, my client is actually looking at something else which I'm not permitted at the moment to disclose, and it's not, the only thing I can say is it's not in the street, but I can't actually talk about it at the moment. But the thing is, if that didn't come off, my client would probably be putting in an application for occasional licenses and roads consent for next year. What the point I'm trying to make is that my client has a premises licence. He is not circumventing the licensing process. He is legitimately using occasional licenses to utilise streets belonging to Angus Council. And I am not sure that that falls within the terms of your policy at policy number 4.4.4. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't trying to suggest that your client was doing anything other than complying, but I'm just trying to see how we're going to move forward with this while the two departments resolve the matter.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Right. I can't control anything that happens in the two departments, but I would be delighted if I got an opportunity at least to put a letter in to the Road Safety Committee to suggest that it would be useful if both roads and licensing had the same terminal hour for the use of pavements. This would be across the whole of the county. This was not something that certainly I was aware there was a difference until this matter arose. And I do believe that it would make sense for Angus Council and Angus Licensing Board to be talking to one another to say, look, our Licensing Board policy stops outside use at 9 o'clock. And I can't understand the reasons for the roads policy being at 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mr Thompson's going to raise that. He's given us his assurance he will raise that within the departments and the council. Okay. Councillor Durno?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that there's no Montrose members on our licensing board because I do know that Councillor Tommy Stewart did have definite views on the fact that this public house had seats outside on the pavement. There was issues that he'd brought up, and I wouldn't like to, you know, have the licence till 9 o'clock at night until I'd heard from any objections from neighbours or anything in that vicinity. And obviously, not being from Montrose, I don't know what the story is. So that's just my take on it. Thanks.
Mr. Thompson, is yours an old hand or is it a new one?
It's a new one, I'm afraid, convener. It's just to highlight something. The board's policy provides that the board will generally look to the applicant to demonstrate that the occasional licence is required for a special event. And in addition, the board will expect the applicant to submit a full premises licence following the submission of no more than 4 occasional licence applications. Now, the terms of the board's policy were quite carefully worded, because I don't think the board can refuse an application because it doesn't meet that criteria. This is a gap in the legislation, and it is something that perhaps the recent events in the last 18 months might encourage the Scottish Government to look at this. But it's just to highlight that these requirements about special events and 4 occasional licences applying for a major variation, they're expectations only, I'm afraid.
That's the word I was going to use. It's an expectation. It's not actually in legislation. Is it okay, members? Then I'm going to move on this occasion, and we've got assurances from Mr. Thompson that he will speak with Rhodes colleagues that we grant this application. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Now, members, can I ask Councillor Moore? I'm going to put you on the spot again. I have had a telephone call. I have an appointment that I've got to keep today that has been brought forward. I just wondered if you would mind chairing the rest of the meeting and the civic licensing. Is that okay with members?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Enthusiasm.
Thank you very much, convener, and your honours, for granting this licence. My client will be very grateful, and I will write a letter in for the roads service if that meets with the approval. Thank you. I hope you have a pleasant rest of the day.
Mrs. Hood.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Hood, if you address it to Walter Scott.
Walter Scott, thank you.
He is the service leader, roads and transportation, and he is also the person who convenes the road safety member officer working group.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. That's super of you, and I do hope you enjoy the rest of today, and thank you for putting up with me so much. Bye.
It's a pleasure.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Bye.
Right, members, can we move on to item 6D? Jonathan Calder looking for 4 occasional licence applications. I notice Mr. Calder's present. Would you like to address the board, sir?
Yeah, no problem. So this is just our continuation from the last meeting, how with our cocktail kits being delivered, that we ran it kind of through lockdown and that, and then through the summer. And the reason for the occasional licenses, because obviously we didn't know if this was going to continue or not, or whatever. But we're happy that we want to continue it. And from the last meeting, obviously, when I applied for the last occasional license, it was told that I had to apply for a premises license, obviously, to keep this going, which we have. So I've applied for that, and it's went in through, and I've applied. Nikki Carletto has been really helpful, and we've sent off to the S50 applications and to planning, and they've came back with another document that I've sent off and that as well. So we're just waiting on them getting back to us with that as well. And so we just thought it was actually Nikki that Ms. Carletto that said to us that we should apply for a few occasional licenses so we can then keep trading at the moment until the process kind of gets going in that as well. We are obviously, I think I applied for it straight after the meetings last time, so I'm chasing them up. I'm going to chase them up again before the end of this week and that as well, just to try and get the process moving as quickly as possible, really.
Thank you. Can I just ask our licensing standards officer, Mrs. Carletto, can you give us an update on where this premises licence application is?
Yes, Councillor Moore. As Jonathan stated, we've or he's applied for the Section 50 applications. We can't lodge a premises application until the Section 50s are granted. So we're just waiting on that. That's why I sort of asked him to put in more occasionals, like Jonathan said, to keep the process going.
Right, thank you. Do members have questions for Mr. Calder? Do we have any comments? No. Right, in light of what we've heard and Mr. Calder's agreement to, and having submitted a premises licence application, I'm going to move that we grant these so that he can continue trading while the premises licence comes through. Do members agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Mr. Calder, your applications.
That's great. Thank you very much for your time today, folks.
Thank you. Right. That is all the applications. We're now moving on to the annual functions report, which is, let me just move down to it, a requirement that we have to submit every year. Do members have any comments on it? No? I would just make 2 comments. I think considering the last year that we've had, our licensing team have done absolute wonders to do all the work that's detailed in it and produce this report. As you'll see shortly, it is far more comprehensive than other authorities are asked to produce. So I think we should record our thanks to our officers for the work that they've done over the last year. Do members agree?
Agree.
Thank you. Right, then we shall move on to the Chief Constable's annual licensing report. Do we have the police present? Can't see them on my list.
Yeah, Constable Jameson's here. My Inspector Jamie Allen should also be present.
Welcome to the meeting. Do you have any comment on this before members consider it?
No, the only thing I would like to say is I did this report myself this year. We get given a template in relation to what we are allowed to say from our policy unit. So this is a national document that gets put out, obviously, to every local authority. I submit the report on the basis of the comments that we took on board from last year. So hopefully I can answer any questions that you have.
Do members have any questions for Constable Jamieson? No. Any comments? No comments either. My only concern with this is that, as you say, it is a national report that is modified. I've seen things coming through the licensing board that have been brought to the licensing board by the police, and yet I don't see any real comment about that in there. So I would personally prefer it to be more specific, but Councillor Whiteside.
Just like to thank Constable Jameson for the report, and it's quite useful to read it every year. Thank you.
Yes, I'm not getting it to our local police licensing team. They do an excellent service and work very well with the council. I'd just like to see the Chief Constable acknowledging that better. Right, do members accept this report? Right, thank you. Moving to item 9. Can I have some advice, please, on this, Mrs. Sanderson? So I believe this is a green paper report.
No, councillor. It's not. It's just
one.
This paper is purely to decide if the board wish to hold the hearing or not.
Right, so notice we've just lost Councillor Durno.
Could I just check what councillors we have in the meeting, please?
From my list, there's myself, Councillor Lumger, Councillor Nicol, Councillor Whiteside, So we're down to 4 councillors at the present time.
We're not quorate 4 councillors.
And I've got to leave shortly to a funeral.
Right. Mr. Thompson, could I have some advice, please?
I personally don't think we can continue, David. We're not quorate.
No, I don't think we can, Vice Convener. I think if we're not, am I right, Mrs. Anderson, that if we're not quorate for the licensing board, we're not quorate for civic licensing either?
No, that's the case.
Then
I don't know if some members have dropped out with connection issues.
No, I think, Vice Convener, that Councillor Durno's declared an interest, which is why she has dropped out. My only suggestion is that we might need to adjourn and see whether or not the members can return when perhaps Councillor Fotheringham's available to rejoin.
Yes, I've no idea how long that will be, though.
Well, given the time, would it be appropriate to have a 15-minute adjournment where we could look into things?
That's what I'm just thinking. Are members, or those who are left, happy to convene till 1:10?
Well, could I just say, if Councillor Durno comes back but Councillor Lumgear has to leave, will that mean that we're still not quorum?
Yes, we need 5 members for a quorum, Councillor Whiteside. So unfortunately we cannot continue. I think the suggestion may be to adjourn for 15 minutes and check people's connections. And if we reconvene in 15 minutes, maybe Vice Convener, if we're not quorate, we'll have to check another time. When are you needing to go, Councillor Lumgear?
Well, at least I can go and get dressed in this 15 minutes, but definitely by 1:45.
Councillor Lumgear. Sorry, Councillor Lumgear, can I just ask if you're available later on? Are you available this afternoon?
No, well, funeral at 3 o'clock, and it's quite a close friend of known for 40 years, plumber known for 40 years, and I would expect, if there is a cup of tea, I would expect it to go back for that.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful, Councillor. I think we'll need 15 minutes to have a think about this.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, I don't think the rest of the business or civic will take that long. So if we reconvene in 15 minutes, do you want to just make it 1:15?
Yes, if we reconvene at 1:15 then.
Okay.
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 Okay. Thank you. Right, I'm advised by Mr. Thompson that under the coronavirus regulations, the quorum of a licensing board is now a third. We have 10 members, so 4 is acceptable. And so we can continue. So there's myself, Councillor Nicholl, Councillor Lumgare and Councillor Whiteside. So we can consider item 9, which is personal licence, notice of conviction. What we are required to do is determine whether we are going to hold a hearing or whether we just note it. Can I have some consideration from members? Councillor Whiteside.
I wonder if we can get some advice from Mrs. Carletto. Obviously, it's a serious matter and we've got a police letter, although maybe some advice around the relevance of this to the licensing board would be helpful in our decision making.
Yeah, Mrs. Carletto, can you assist?
Apologies, I'm going to have to pass this to Mr. Thompson because I'm really not sure on that.
Okay, Mr. Thompson. Is Mr. Thompson there?
Yeah, yes, Vice Convener, Mr. Thompson's here. I can look into this, but it might be easier for Police Scotland to confirm that these are relevant offences for the purposes of the Licensing Scotland Act.
All right, Constable Jamieson, can you assist us, please?
Yeah, Section 38 certainly is the relevant offence. The Abusive Behaviour and Sexual Harm Scotland Act, that's a new legislation. So it's one of the first actually I've seen. I was just want to say as well, Section 2 is disclosing an intimate photograph or film. But because these offences basically were concurrent, happened at the same time, I was advised that they both could be disclosed to the board. And I think he's actually made you aware himself that he's been convicted.
Yeah, that's very helpful. On that basis, I think it would be open to the board to proceed to review.
Right. I will propose that we move to review so that Mr. Nassim can come and give his side of the story and explain what happened. Are members satisfied with that?
Agreed.
Great.
Vice Convener, could I propose, as this has to be dealt with within 42 days, could I propose that the board hold a hearing on Thursday the 30th of September 2021 and hold a special Angus licensing board to deal with the matter? Is that agreed?
Fiona, Councillor Durno and myself have another meeting scheduled for that time. It might be possible to change it. Is
that in the morning? Is it?
Yes, it's at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Would you wish it later on then?
Yeah, or possibly earlier. Could we do it at 9? Would that be suitable?
9 suitable with me.
That's fine. 9 o'clock.
Thank
9
you.
o'clock on the. Not that it worries Brenda because she's out of it for this.
Oh, well, that's true. It's just myself, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. Are we satisfied with that? Can we move on? We have item 10, occasional licenses, delegated approvals. Do we note? We have premises license, minor variations, delegated
Sorry,
approvals.
is Councillor back in the meeting, please?
Sorry, she's back. Right, premises license, minor variations, delegated approvals noted. And personal licenses, delegated approvals noted. And while I know it's the end of the meeting, membership of the Angus Licensing Board. Welcome back, Councillor Nicholl.
Hi, Gavin.
Thank you for your attendance, and Angus Licensing Board meeting closed.